Hi everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. I know many of us like to decorate our envelopes over the holiday season, but today I wanted to show you how to create an envelope from scratch. Now, if you have one of those envelope punch boards, those work great. But if you have designer paper that needs to go in a certain direction, sometimes those punch boards don't work. So I wanted to show you today how to create an envelope and then decorate it up using a couple of my Stampers Anonymous stamps from Tim Holtz. Now I'm going to be using the Yuletide collection stamp set, and then I'm also going to be using this label set to create my label. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock. Now remember, this is going to be an envelope, so you want it to be a little bit heavy. Now for my template, I went the old-fashioned way, and I just took one of my 5x7 envelopes and I deconstructed it to kind of get my measurements. But the measurements you're going to need are as follows. So the length of your envelope is going to be 11 inches. So you're going to cut off a full inch off of your 12 by 12 cardstock. Now, if you're working with Kraft cardstock like I am now, you don't really have to pay attention to the design. But if you are working with designer paper, you want to make sure that the length of the envelope is the 11-inch cut. And then for the width, you're going to want to go to about 8 3/4. So once you have your cardstock cut down, you're going to want to do some scoring. And you're going to want to flip your paper so that way the 11-inch is on your scoreboard. And then you're going to score a couple of lines here. You're going to score over at 3.5, and then you're going to score again on the other side. You're going to flip it over, and you're going to score at 2 1/4. And then on your side scores, you want to score probably about 3/4 of an inch. And then you're going to be able to cut those down to create your flaps. Now, when you're cutting your flaps, as you see in this photo here, you want to make sure that you keep your flaps and the score line on the middle section, because that's going to be what's scored over. So you only want to cut to the point where you scored. And then what I like to do is I like to put a little cut going diagonally, because when you fold over your flaps, that will just help to be able to have it lay a little bit flatter for you. All right, so once you have your envelope cut out, then you're going to want to go ahead and distress it if you're going to create a distressed vintage envelope. And the colors that I typically like to use are my vintage photo, and then you can also use walnut stain, but that's going to be a little bit darker, so your vintage photo will work really nicely. And then once you have your distress ink all over your paper, then it's time to stamp. Now, like I said, I'm using the Yuletide stamp set, and I'm using this Old Time Santa, but any stamp is going to be great. You just want to keep in mind that you are going to be putting a label to be able to address it. So just keep that in mind when you are working with your stamps. Now, when you are going to add your washi tape, if you add your washi tape first, then this won't be an issue. But if you add your washi tape after the fact, like I'm doing, you just want to make sure that you keep that in mind when you are stamping your image. I knew I was going to add some washi tape, so you can see that I added my stamped Santa just a little bit above that score line, so that way I didn't cover my image when I added my washi tape. Now, there's a lot of thin washi tapes out there, and that's probably what I would recommend if you are adding washi tape to your edges. Go for the thinner tape, so that way it doesn't take over the area that you want to decorate for your envelope. Now, when I'm adding my washi tape, I don't know if you noticed, I kept my washi tape a little bit longer than my envelope, and I folded the edge over rather than just cut it off right at the edge. And I did this because I knew that I was going to be folding up my envelope, which would cover the folded washi tape. And that way it's just a little bit more secure, and I don't have to worry about the edges coming up. All right, now the other set that I'm going to be using to decorate my stamp set is the correspondence stamp set from Tim Holtz. He also came out with a Christmas one, but I don't have that set. And I found that this set, along with some of my other Christmas stamps, worked just fine. So I didn't end up investing in it. But if you are one of those people that like to have every set, there is a Christmas correspondence set out there that is designed specifically for Christmas. Now, when I'm stamping my images, I like to use a red and a blue to go with my postal theme. And the distress ink that I'm using for this particular stamp is Faded Jeans, I believe. And then when I use the red stamp, I either use the Fired Brick, Worn Lipstick, or the Candied apple. Any one of those three reds would work fine for your envelope. Now, the only color that I don't use in my Distress Oxide or my Distress ink collection is the black soot. I just find it, I don't get a crisp enough stamped image when I use the black soot, so I tend to use either my scrapbook.com black ink or any of my archival inks. Now, another red that works really well also is the red ink from scrapbook.com, and I believe I did use it on this envelope as well. So you have a wide variety of your reds, but I would definitely stick with the Faded Jeans for your blue ink. So once I was finished stamping the bigger images, I went ahead and I moved my stamp platform aside, and I just started to use my acrylic block. For some of these smaller stamped images, I knew that I can get a nice impression by using just one stamp, rather than having to use the platform and stamp it a couple times to get a nice crisp image. So once you get your bigger images stamped, you can easily move to an acrylic block. Now, there's so many great stamps in this correspondence collection that you can use. There's a lot of number stamps, and there is even a place like I just stamped here to show where your stamp goes. So you don't necessarily have to completely do the design that I'm doing. There's a lot of different variations to create all sorts of different envelopes, and that's kind of fun as well. If you're going to be creating several envelopes, who wants to necessarily create the exact same envelope? You can mix it up a bit with this set. Remnant rubs are another way that you can go to decorate your envelope. I know that Tim Holtz has several of his remnant rubs available, and I think that there is a correspondence one as well. So you can easily mix and match your stamps along with your remnant rubs to add to your envelope. But keep in mind, with the remnant rubs, once you use them, they're gone. Whereas when you're using your stamps, you can stamp over and over again. Now, even though this stamp set, the correspondence set, was a little bit pricey, I get a lot of use out of it. Not only do I use it for Christmas, but I use it all year round. And then the other set, which is the label set, is another set that I get a lot of use out of. I also get a lot of use out of the label set that I'm going to be sharing with you right now. And again, when I am mailing out items from my shop, I like to stamp my own labels and just make my packages look really nice and presentable. And I often do use these label stamps. Now, as you can see, I am using a sticker set from the Postal Service, but since I am going to be mailing an envelope, I'm not necessarily using it in vain because it is going on an envelope. But I really like the fact there's a little 2 on this priority mail sticker, and then I can easily position my label so that way I have a nice label that says 2 on it. These stickers are free in your post office, so you can get a bunch of them and use them for your envelopes. Now, if you don't want to do that necessarily, you can always buy the stickers over at your local Walmart or Target, and then you can stamp several of these labels right onto your sticker sheet and then just cut them out like I'm doing now. Another thing that I like to do is I like to add stickers to decorate my envelope just to make it look a little bit old. And I do have some really great sticker sets in my shop that I'll link to that I'll be using right now. So one thing I want to do for you is if anybody does buy the label set that I'll be linking to, I'll also send you one of my decorated envelopes just as a little bonus. So when you are ordering the label set, just make sure you leave me a little note to let me know that you also want one of my decorated envelopes, and that'll just be a little bonus for you. Now, these labels that I'm using are reproductions. I like to find old labels or just vintage inspired labels and reproduce them using my Photoshop Elements program, and then I will put them onto a sticker sheet and cut them out. And that way I have really fun stickers to use on some of my designs. And then after I have all of my stickers adhered, then as a final touch, I do like to use a Dear Santa stamp from another Christmas collection that I have, just to finish off the envelope. The Dear Santa stamp is from an old Christmas collection that I don't even think is available anymore, but it is truly one of my favorite stamp sets as well. And I use it every Christmas because it has some great sentiments. And then before adding my adhesive to the flaps, I like to go ahead and get my corner rounder out and round my corners. And then at this point, I'm ready to add my adhesive to my flaps to close off my envelope. Now, you aren't going to have any adhesive for the flap where you actually close your envelope. So what I like to do is I just like to add some double-sided tape, and then I just won't peel off the second layer. And then that way, if I am giving these envelopes as a gift, then when you go to use the envelope, you can just easily peel off the strip and you're ready to go. So as always, I'll leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the envelope along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now in the next video, I'm going to be creating a card to go along with this envelope. And that way you can see how fun it is to not only have a card, but an envelope that matches as well. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.